أهلا وسهلا، كيف حالكم؟ أرجو أن تكونوا بخير. Dear friends, I'm glad to inform you that we have finally made it to verbs. And since Arabic plays by its own rules when it comes to verbs and their conjugation, things are going to be slightly unfamiliar to the majority of you. Therefore, we will be moving one step at a time in a bit of making this whole series as a gateway for an in-depth study of morphology, which is the very heart of conjugating any verb in Arabic. Until we reach that level, let's take the first step of this journey by introducing you to the part of speech al-fi'l. This introduction will cover a definition of verbs and their signs, along with a glimpse at Arabic tenses, which do differ from English, coupled with a highlight of the major dissimilarities between Arabic and English. So without any further ado, let's get started. And to begin with, what is a verb? Well, a verb is simply a word that denotes the occurrence of an action in a specific time. It can also indicate a state of being or a condition. To put it differently, a verb represents the part of the sentence that tells us what or how the subject performs and at which time. And needless to say that verbs stand at the third and final part of speech in Arabic. We have already discussed the parts of speech in a separate series that I will link up on the right side of your screen. Right, moving on. And this time, let's discuss one of the major dissimilarities between Arabic and English in terms of verbs, obviously. Well, let's take a look at this example. I entered. We all agree that the action is to enter, the time is the past, and the actor is me. The actor is embodied in the personal pronoun I. As for entered, it is used regardless of the actor as long as we are on the past tense. It will always remain as is. He entered, they entered, she entered, etc. Do you see what I mean? Now, if we move on to the other side, the interesting thing is that Arabic verbs contain the three pieces of information, I mean the action, the actor, and the time, all in the verb itself. Set aside the separate personal pronoun. For example, when I say دخلت, I'm combining all three elements in one word. The action of entering, the actor which is me, and the time which is the past. And you are probably wondering why I didn't say أنا دخلت. And the thing is, the actor takes a different form with Arabic verbs. It is represented by a series of suffixes and prefixes that are directly connected to the base form of the verb. In today's examples, it is the suffix to. For example, for her, it will be دخلت, not دخلت, and for you, singular masculine, it will be دخلت, and the feminine virgin will be دخلتي. So we are basically playing with suffixes here. And please don't worry, it's not that hard. Once we will reach this part slightly further down the line, you will realize how easy it is. Right. Also, before moving on, let's get the record straight from the get-go. It is not erroneous to say, for example, أنا دخلت or أنت دخلت. The context will sometimes require the usage of the personal pronoun along with the verb. What I meant earlier is that the verb itself will indicate the actor even without the personal pronoun, but that doesn't mean that we will always get rid of the personal pronoun. Alright. Let's pick up the threads. We were talking about the dissimilarities between Arabic and English verbs, and the first thing was that the verb itself, once conjugated obviously, will indicate the action, the actor, and the time all in one go, even without the personal pronoun. You definitely need a standalone or let's say a separate personal pronoun in English, but it is not always the case in Arabic. Right. To discover the verb signs and to achieve that, nouns will be our reference point, since they represent a part of speech we are all familiar with. So, the rule is that verbs will never showcase noun signs, which means that under no circumstances verbs will never end with tanween, start with a definite article al, or end with the genitive case, i.e. كسرة or tanween al-kasr, They will also never end with تا مربوطة. Instead, if a verb ends with the letter تا, it will always be a تا مفتوحة. No exceptions. So again, verbs will never end with تنوين or start with the definite article ال. They will also never end with the genitive case or with تا مربوطة. Instead, it will always be a تا مفتوحة. Brilliant! Now, before moving on, just in case you are wondering, are these all the signs? And the answer is definitely not. We will pick up the others as we go, since they require a solid knowledge of different tenses, conjugation, and also particles. Okay, that's it for the signs. Now let's have a little chat about tenses. And the good news is that we only have 3 tenses in Arabic. I think you are expecting more, isn't it? And our 3 tenses are the past, the present, and the imperative. And yes, the imperative mood is considered as a tense in Arabic, and that's another major difference between Arabic and English. And here it stands to reason for you to ask, where did the future tense go? Well, the future is part of the present tense in Arabic. Sounds weird, isn't it? And the reason behind that is quite simple, and that is, the future tense is created simply by playing with the present form of the verb, either by adding a prefix or by putting a particle right before it, along with a couple of other options available. So technically, there is no conjugation going on. It is all about adding letters and words to the present form of the verb, and accordingly, the verb might remain as is or be slightly modified if need be. Hence, the future tense is part of the present tense since there is no conjugation going on, or let's say there is very little conjugation going on. And please fear not, this part is incredibly simple. We will have an in-depth study of this tense, if you want to call it so, in due course. Remember, this is just an introduction, my friends. So by and large, the fact that the future do not stand on its own as a tense is another major difference between English and Arabic. Right. Now on to the last section of this lesson, which is also a gateway for what's coming, so I would really appreciate if you pay extra attention. We are going to shed the light upon verbs classification. Right, classification-wise, there is an endless number of criteria in Arabic that are used to classify verbs in different categories. However, for the sake of simplicity, we are going to focus only on 2. Roots and regularity. And I'm glad to inform you that the root system will be at the very heart of our next lesson, since it represents the building stone of morphology. So stay tuned for the upcoming lesson, and مع السلامة!